Most of us assume that therapy works because of the therapist, but that's not what research shows. In fact, one psychologist discovered that he could predict in just a single session whether therapy would actually help someone or not. And the twist? It had nothing to do with the therapist and everything to do with something that the clients were doing without even realizing. In this video, we're going to explore the surprising factor that predicted therapy success and what it means for your own healing. We'll look at why insight alone, it's not enough to create change and how it actually gets in the way sometimes. And we'll also look at how to access this missing piece so that we can start making progress again. And if you're wanting some additional support, I'll also share a free resource at the end of the video. Hi, I'm Jess. I've spent the last 20 years helping people reconnect to their bodies, emotions, and inner knowing. And what I found for myself and for others is that real change, it doesn't come from analyzing the past. It comes from how we relate to what's happening inside of us right now. So back in the 1960s, a psychologist named Eugene Gendlin set out to answer a simple but powerful question. Why does therapy work for some people and not for others? He and his team, they recorded hundreds of therapy sessions from start to finish, and they looked for patterns. And at first, they assumed that the therapist would be the deciding factor. So maybe the more empathetic or the more brilliant therapist, maybe those were the ones getting the results. But that's not what they found. So when they compared the sessions, the therapists were actually doing mostly the same thing. And yet, some clients got better and others didn't. So they shifted their attention and they started to look more at what the clients were doing. And that's when they made a huge discovery. So at some point in the session, these clients, they would pause, their speech would slow down, and they'd sort of reach inward and try to describe something that they were feeling, something that they didn't fully understand yet. They were sensing into something. Maybe it was a tightness in their chest, a flutter in the belly, or a sense of stuckness or pressure. Something vague but alive in their body at the moment. And they stayed with that something long enough for meaning to begin to form. So instead of overanalyzing, they listened more deeply to something inside, something that was subtle, felt, and trying to move towards resolution. And the others, they didn't do this. They stayed in their heads. They were articulate, insightful, even emotional. They could explain their childhood, analyze their patterns, even cry about their pain. But nothing actually shifted for them, no matter how much they understood themselves. True change, it never came. And Gendlin's work made it clear. The clients who healed, they weren't more insightful or more informed or even more self-aware. They were more connected to their embodied experience in the moment. That in-between place, when we feel something's there, but we don't quite know what it is yet. Gendlin and his team, they termed that space the felt sense. And as I've come to understand this more, I found the term felt sense can be a little bit misleading because it's not just a physical sensation, though it is anchored in the body. It's more like our whole system's way of holding this complex, often unspoken knowing and conveying it to us through sensation, image, thought, and feeling. But I won't go too deep into that now. Maybe I'll make a future video about that felt sense. For now, the bottom line is this. Gendlin discovered that relating to our felt sense, it's the key to change. And here's why this matters so much right now. We are the most self-aware generation in history, right? We know about attachment style, trauma responses, nervous system states. We know why we people please, why we shut down, what our parents didn't get from their parents, what we didn't get from our parents. We're not lacking in insight. We're swimming in it. In fact, we might even be drowning in it. And here's why I say that. We've become so good at explaining our pain that we can often talk about it without even feeling it. We say the right words, we name the right wounds, we explain why we are the way we are, all while staying subtly disconnected from our actual embodied experience. We know why we're anxious, but that doesn't stop the anxiety. We know our patterns, but that doesn't necessarily change them. We understand our trauma, but that doesn't always help us heal it. And I'll be the first to admit I've done this so much in my life because it's really easy to get stuck in the loop of insight. It's safe, it's clean, it's comfortable. And on some level, it feels like the insight itself is progress, but it's very limited progress. Because what I've seen in myself and others is that too much insight can actually get in the way. It becomes counterproductive, a sort of barrier to true embodied change. And this moment is unique because as we become more psychologically informed, we also become more disembodied. Think about it. Our attention is constantly pulled outward into our phone, into our computer, into social media, where we're flooded with other people's opinions, their experiences, their advice. We're consumed by this virtual world, inundated with education, insight, and information. And what gets left behind, what we disconnect from as we connect to the virtual world so much, is our inner felt sense, that quiet, subtle awareness that lives in the body. So while technology gives us more insight, it pulls us further away from the one thing that Gendlin found actually makes the difference in healing. But here's the good news. That felt sense, it doesn't go anywhere. And if we turn back towards it, we find that it's right there, like it's been waiting for us. It's not something we have to go out and get. It's already in us. It's something that we were all born with. But for most of us, it got sort of buried under years of conditioning. So some of us were taught to override these inner impulses, and others, we shut them down after experiencing hurt or alienation. Most of us were raised in cultures that rush us to explain, to push through, to figure it all out. We weren't taught to quietly listen to what our inner world was trying to communicate to us. In fact, we were often taught to turn away from that knowing. I remember being a kid and feeling deeply connected to this inner sense. I trusted it. I felt confident in what it was telling me. I also remember all the subtle and not so subtle ways that I was conditioned to turn away from it, to just move on, to get in line, to not be weird or dramatic or sensitive. Most of us were pulled away from this quiet knowing inside. But the good news is that this way of listening, it can be relearned. We can begin to rebuild our relationship with this deeper intelligence, not by forcing it, but by offering our inner world something that most of us, we rarely receive: interested, patient, curious attention. It might sound simple, and it is. It's astoundingly simple. It's also really powerful. But because we're conditioned to look outward, saying hello to these inner experiences, really turning towards them and getting curious about what they might be trying to share with us, it can take some practice. It's what I practice, and it's a lot of what I teach. Remembering the power of these inner impulses, remembering how to listen to them, and remembering that healing, it doesn't come from knowing more. It comes from being with more of our embodied present moment experience. And when we practice doing that, when we start welcoming home these parts of ourselves that feel uncertain, scared, angry, or ashamed, and when we learn to stay with them and open to the sensations, the images, the messages that they bring, that's when we begin to unlock real movement. That's when things start to really shift. So if you're ready to start listening in a new way, it really helps to understand how your nervous system works. Because our nervous system, it plays a huge role in how we experience our inner world and how these inner signals, they do or they don't get through. So with that in mind, I've linked a free ebook below. It'll walk you through the foundations of understanding your nervous system and understanding how it connects to the kind of deep inner listening that we explored here today. I'll also link a video here about how trauma and chronic stress shape and sometimes often distort the signals that we get from the inside. This video will help you understand why reconnecting to your body's wisdom sometimes can feel really hard and what you can do about it. And if you've got any questions or topics that you'd love to see explored, drop them in the comments. I'll do my best to speak to them in a future video. All right, thank you for being here, and I hope to see you around the channel more.